Sure.
What happened at the Open, Mr. Olympia? I would normally give a my own review and say, look, this guy didn't deserve to win or he
Mm,
deserved to win.
mm.
This year, I have no idea what that was about. I I couldn't work it out. I can't
No.
even give an opinion. I just don't even know what to say anymore.
Mm, mm.
And
What a loss.
look, Steve, I come from a time when I came into bodybuilding. I started reading about, the healthy side of it. There was Paul C. Bragg, who was in
Mm-hmm.
his late 90s,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a really young girlfriend. He was the world chin-up champion,
Mm-hmm.
and he passed away war skiing in Hawaii. I think it was 98. He had an accident,
Yeah.
and his girlfriend was on the beach sitting there watching this. So this was so when I started reading about this guy, he was in his late 80s when I started reading about him, and he
Yeah.
held the world chin up record. Okay,
Wow.
so I said, this guy's not really built like a bodybuilder,
Mm.
but look at what he's doing at this age. Look how healthy he is. And
Yep.
straight away, we knew in order to progress in bodybuilding, you had to build your health because
Yeah.
the healthier you were, the better everything happened. Your muscles grew, you
Mm-hmm.
recovered, you were strong at sports. Everything about it was
Mm.
positive. It was like a life extension tool. Now, I was hearing Dana White talk where he came across this guy that worked for insurance companies, and he's able to determine with your lifestyle when you're going to die,
Mm.
right? Which I guess could change from day to day or from week to week.
Yes, yes.
But I just, so I came into the sport when everything about bodybuilding was life extending, healthy,
Mm-hmm. Likewise.
big muscular
Yep.
guys, healthy,
Longevity.
longevity. You were able to do everything. You were a superhuman.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't even know, like, from week to week, are they going to be alive? What are they
Exactly.
doing?
When we were younger,
Yeah.
that was the message that was given. That was what bodybuilding was all about. And bodybuilding done right increases your longevity massively.
Yes. So
Mm.
I feel when it's done correctly, for every hour that we spend in the gym exercising, it's increasing your lifespan by 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Every hour spent in a gym doing what we deem as a sustainable, healthy, um, life-giving,
Endeavor. Yeah. Yeah.
that 1 hour of training and everything that's gone into it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, okay, now we've extended our lives by 3 hours by doing
Yep.
this. Now, I don't even know what to say and what's going on and what's with all. Look, because on social media, everybody dies and you hear about it,
Mm.
but I don't know with these bodybuilders just fit
Well, John,
healthy.
I've got a few opinions on that one. The first one,
Yeah.
each year I take my son, or I did take my son to the Arnold Classic in Melbourne, and he'd go around and meet all the bodybuilders. Now he shook hands with Dallas McCarver. Within
Yes.
now that afternoon, my son, he was only young then and just starting to show some interest in bodybuilding, saw him vomit in the corner of the stage, and he saw him fall over, and people had to carry him. A couple of weeks later, he was dead. He shook hands with Mr. Olympia. Oh dear,
Go
this
on.
is yeah. Shook hands with Mr. One of the current Mr. Olympias. Shook his hand. He was dead a week later.
Was that Sean Roden?
Yes, yes, Sean
Yeah.
Roden. We met Cedric McMillan at the airport.
Right.
My son and I, we shook hands with him. Dead.
But
And my son saw this, and he's been around the more aesthetic side of bodybuilding, as you
yeah,
can probably imagine. That's what
yeah,
I'm all
yeah,
about. You know,
yeah,
this era.
yeah.
You know, and so when I actually showed him his first pro bodybuilding competition, it just left him cold. He's just like, Dad, no, this isn't bodybuilding now. This is coming from a 15-year-old kid.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to get across to young people is what it used to be like. I'm hearing what you're saying now, and it just resonates with me so
Mm.
much. My dad, he was an absolute powerhouse, brimming with health. In fact, yes, see, it's not a good photo of him. I haven't got many good photos of him. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh wow.
Um,
Yeah.
And you know, this I grew up
Nice. Yeah.
seeing my dad
Yeah.
exercise and without steroids, and no judgment on anyone who takes steroids,
Yeah.
without steroids, and pursuing a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
He was incredible right up to the age he got Alzheimer's. He was looking at entering a bodybuilding competition at the age of 70. He was going to go in the
Oh,
over
wow.
70s in Tasmania.
Wow.
And I'm convinced if he hadn't got Alzheimer's, him, myself, and my son would have been on stage in the same competition.
That's incredible. That would have been
Bodybuilding gives you
something.
longevity. It protects you against falls when you're older.
Yep.
It stops muscular degeneration, which holds back type 2 diabetes and all that sort of stuff. When I had my car crash, which ended my bodybuilding, my health went down dramatically because type 2 diabetes does run in my family. In fact, not many people did run in my family, and it got me. I couldn't train for over a decade. I had to sleep with a pillow between my knees.
Really?
The car crash, yep. And my broken foot as well, as we discussed.
Yeah.
I had a myriad of broken bones from martial arts in the car crash.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I couldn't train during that time. And I remember this really obese doctor.
Yeah.
Sat back. I don't think he's seen his sausage and 2 eggs in about 3 decades. It was huge. I sat back and he goes, "Don't weight train anymore. It'll kill you. Just take it easy." And he said, "Why do you want to be big anyway?" And I'm thinking, oh my God. So stupid me took his advice, and I didn't want to train because I thought it would give my back a chance to heal. It got 10 times worse.
Yeah.
Finally, I decided to totally change my diet, start weight training again. All that pain went. It just
Immediately.
Went, yes. Oh, within 6 months.
Well, Steve, the single set, we do supersets, giant sets, all that sort of stuff, force. But when you actually look at the set system, just do a set, right? It is very, very therapeutic.
Oh,
and it's a form of rehabilitation. Yep. If you look at the way physios give you rehab, you're only a hop, skip, and a jump away from turning it into a regular program.
Absolutely.
And bodybuilding, I'm not sure what it was originally intended for, but it was more than just developing your body. It was a form of therapy for strengthening, fixing up injuries, all sorts of ailments. And it was a youth formula, a fountain of youth. The diet.
It was about virility and athleticism.
Yes.
I think you've seen a video of my dad, going back to my dad again. My dad always taught me a few things as I was growing up. See, I started hanging around in gyms when I was 3 years old. I was very lucky.
Okay.
I had no chance of not being obsessed with bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I'd hear the car keys go on a Saturday morning, and my dad ran the gym in Devonport. I'd race out to the car and I'd jump in there with him. We'd go there. The door would be a bunch of guys at the door ready to train. There was no music back then. The only heavy metal was the iron clanging.
Yeah.
He'd open the door, he'd walk in, and he would walk around the gym, and he'd just adjust, the little pinky finger up this way, the elbow up that way, and it would make each exercise more excruciatingly anabolic.
Yeah.
And these guys would be in agony, and they were loving it. And anyone that was trained by my dad developed the same look, the wide shoulders, the lats that just came in to a tiny, tight waist. He had them following a high fats, high protein, medium carb diet. And he didn't ask them to bulk up. He said, take your time, go at it slowly. And he was all about longevity and being able to move as well. He said, no point being a bodybuilder if you can't move. If you have to walk like you've got a stick up your bum, you're not a bodybuilder. No. And a bodybuilder, in his eyes and my eyes, and this is what I'm trying to get across to the youth of today, has virility, has flexibility, has an athletic, what they call an athletic gait, a way of walking, which like Steve Reed's, Reg Park and all that.
Yep.
See, my dad, he started bodybuilding because he was walking past an auditorium and out walked Reg Park in a suit, and he'd never seen anything like it in his life.
Yeah.
My dad was always athletic. He was a soccer player, but amazingly fit. But he wasn't a bodybuilder. He was a skinny man like I was when I started. And he saw this guy and he's like, who the hell is that? He'd never seen anything like it. And he was just transfixed. Next day, he went to the newsagent. There was Reg Park on the cover
Oh,
of Bodybuilding magazine, and he read it from cover to cover. He's a very scientific man. He wrote down all the things, but
okay.
all the main points from the magazines over the next few months, and divides his own routine. He just grew like that. He just started to grow and grow and grow. But it's this the way Reg Park carried himself, the way he walked, his presence, his aura, his vitality. He always said that he didn't take steroids. Now, I don't know about that one. If he did, he probably took minimal doses, but he was always about health and getting enough sun and always being active. You know, you see him in South Africa swimming all the time and moving.
But
and
Steve, also, I'm not advocating the use of steroids, but they weren't made to make you ill. They were actually made to improve your health.
Yep.
And you know, to help you overcome war injuries and all sorts of debilitating things that can happen to you. That's what they were made for. They were not made to make people sick.
No, that's right.
Well,
Marcus
so
ruled.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
I was just thinking of a quote then.
Yeah.
Marcus ruled, the massive mass monster from Germany. I'll tell you a story about him afterwards. I met him. But he's got a famous quote, "I'm not doing this for health. I'm doing this to get huge." And that pretty much sums up the modern bodybuilding mentality. It's almost suicide in a needle. It's crazy. You know, when I first started, this is what my dad got me onto: freeze-dried bull's liver,
primal energy.
Yeah, primal energy beef liver, grass-fed beef.
Where do you get those from? Because
I got this one from a shop in Melbourne. You can get them online. You can get
so they actually have that in a shop.
They do have it in some health shops. If you go to a health shop, you'll find it. If not, you can get it online for quite a. They're pretty expensive, but it's worth it. This is what my dad
liver tablets, basically liver tablets. Yeah.
Yep.
Because remember, he also used to have the glandulars. Vince Gironda used to advocate glandulars, and those glandulars are still available in the United States. And I never actually used. I think maybe once I tried one thing, but there were people who took these glandulars that have also used anabolic steroids, and they said, well, they pretty much work the same way. But
it worked for me.
The side effect. So you took the glandulars.
I took
the liver tablets.
And I took the liver tablets by the boatload. I didn't take the glandulars, but they're making a comeback now. There's an Australian company that makes, and it sells all the organ meats dried in tablet format.
That's interesting.
And it's interesting that liver and things like that are making a comeback, because I don't know if you've seen a guy called Liver King.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Now, he's taken it to extremes. He's obviously, you know, chowing down on bull's testicles online. He's taken it to the next extreme. Good luck getting a girlfriend doing that. But the mind behind it is eating those quality organs really does have an effect on the body. It's been proven over many years of bodybuilders. It's not just hearsay. It's lots of people have taken it and noted the difference, especially Vince Gironda. And, you know, that's what my dad got me onto. But going back to your original question about the 2023 Mr. Olympia, and I think you were in the same mindset as me, that something had gone drastically wrong that day. Now, I'm not a fan of Hattie. I think he's a little bit too blocky and refrigerator-esque, but he was in way better condition that day.
Yes.
Ripped, shredded. If you're going to choose between Hattie and our current Mr. Olympia, I would have chosen Hattie, but the Mr. Olympia who won, you know, when he's got his arms up, he's got these incredible lumps under his lats. Now, that's not muscle. I've been watching bodybuilding since 1976, and I have never seen lumps like that. That was something to do with injections for sure, and so many people have called him out on it.
Could it have been some sort of lymphatic drainage problem? Your lymph nodes are underneath there. Because I mean, Steve, let's look at this logically. His best body part is his lats and his back. Why on earth would you inject anything further into something that's already on the verge of being overdeveloped?
because this is what they do. Take Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian, right? She's a world famous. Well, I don't know what she's famous. Well, I do know what she's famous for. What she originally became famous for, but she's been known for her butt. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Yet look what she's done to it recently. She has injected so much oil into her butt. It looks like a Clydesdale horse. It's out here, and yet her hamstrings are flat as. So you've got this back, amazingly huge ass, and then flat hamstrings, and it looks atrocious. And everyone's calling her out on it. Bodybuilders do the same thing. They think, I've got this incredible body part. If I put just a tiny bit more in, it'll be even more big. Perfect example, Ernie Taylor. When he first started,
I know
he had incredible triceps. What did he do to him?
He injected more.
Injected more and would wobble his triceps like this. And stupid me back in the day didn't have as much knowledge about it.
Yes.
Now I know what he did, and I look back on it and think, oh my God. I can think of a few other examples where people have taken a great body part and they're famous for it, and they think, well, it's that mindset of, oh, I can just do that little bit more. And everybody was talking about how much more Derek's lats had improved in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Look at who his trainer is. His trainer. Oh, I should probably be careful what I say here.
No, say what you need to say, because we're not abusing anyone. We're talking.
No.
It's your opinion.
Yeah. Well, his trainer is
Hanny Rambod.
Yes, it's obvious that anyone he trains is going to be heavily on the growth hormone insulin combo.
Okay.
And I'm even seeing that with our current physique Olympia. And, God knows what else. And I can just see signs of oil in the people he trains. It's
okay,
there.
so he also trains Chris Bumstead.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure about Chris Bumstead's biceps and what's happened to him lately, but I did see one pose or a couple of poses where he was flexing his biceps, and I don't know, it just looked a bit strange.
It did. Yeah. And the right quad, the rectus femoris, it seems to be split in two. He must have had some sort of injury, and he can't help it. But I have to ask, are there others who are smaller with better flow to their physiques?
Yeah.
I've never been one for admiring a Hummer over a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Take yourself. I did have a photo of you in one of my Ironman magazines I was going to show you this morning.
Yep.
It might be this one. If I just quickly glance through it, I don't think it was a picture of you in the early 80s, and it was phenomenal. And you have what I call a Lamborghini physique.
Okay.
You're not about, well, you were a big, powerful guy, but you've got your people like Marcus Rule, post 98 Ronnie Coleman, Big Ramy, all those people. They are what I call Hummer physiques. Arnold's Hummer.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd much
so
rather.
Where would you put Lee Haney?
He was a bit of both. He was
small waist,
small
waist, beautiful hips.
Yeah, he had ecto and mesomorphic traits. So he had the small waist. He definitely had that incredible bulk up the top, didn't he?
Well, the way his lats tied into his waist, right? You got the lats, and it was the tie-in to his waist, and then the way the waist tied into the hips.
Yep.
Because when you look at the guy with a really small waist from England, Brian Buchanan. Yeah, it just didn't look right, because you'd have this super small waist, which came down to a point where the hips then took over.
Yeah.
And when you looked at him side on, you'd think, wait on, this guy had a small waist from the front. Side on, is this the same waist?
Not so much. No, that's right. Yeah.
So really, Lee had everything put together in a manner where it makes it difficult for you to even say, well, where do I fit this guy in?
Totally. He was genetics from the gods there.
Yeah.
And speaking of genetics, that's another thing I want to ask you about later, because you've mentioned genetics in the past and how that term annoys you a little bit.
It does.
Because it puts a ceiling on what people can achieve.
Yes.
I was going to ask you about that later as well.
Yeah,
and I've got a few opinions about that.
Yeah. So Lee, for you, does Lee Haney fit into that mold of aesthetic?
Yes. He would be pushing the limits, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel later on when he relaxed, the bulk sort of hung down a little bit. I would say a very large Lamborghini.
Yeah. What about
Like
Bertil Fox?
Lamborghini.
What about someone like Bertil Fox, who
Bertil Fox, look, he was still within the realms of not ruining his God-given lines. You know what I mean? I still think he was, for all his power and bulk, still slightly a Lamborghini physique because he kept everything tight. It wasn't overblown and fake looking like what you're getting now. Let's be honest. The reason they look so big now, the reason they look so bulbous, and they're lacking the separation of the hardness, is because they're on this dreadful growth hormone and insulin combo. What in God's name is anyone bodybuilding doing taking growth hormone and insulin that's supposed to treat type 2 diabetes? They're going to end up with their pancreatic cancer.
problems.
Yeah.
It's scary when you think about it, simply because of the mindset. Look, maybe I'm more scared than other people because it's the mindset that I came from.
Yeah.
And now it's turned into something totally dangerous.
Yeah, it has. And that, look, you and I are on the same page. And this is what I'm trying to get across on my TikTok channel, which has taken off with a lot of the younger guys. I'm finding a lot of young guys are now starting to change in the way they're thinking since hearing me, some old fart who's obsessed with the old days, talking about longevity, things that they don't hear about from anyone else. Posing. Someone commented the other day, I'm such a snob about posing since following your channel. I said, that's exactly what I want. You know, when you and I finally meet up, what I want to do is to have you going through some movements on the edge of a cliff.
Yes,
and my son's got a really good drone.
Love to do that.
Really, and zoom in on you, but then flash back to some movements of you doing the same thing on the Olympia stage in your prime, and then go back to you now and show that, yes, you can still have it. You can have longevity. You can still move well. That aesthetic mindset, that artistic mindset never leaves you. And I'm finding more and more people are turning towards that. And that's my goal. You know, in terms of bodybuilding, I'm an absolute nobody. I have no... I'm proud of myself because I was the skinniest man you've ever seen in your life. I could have hidden behind a telegraph pole. It was ridiculous. But, you know, over a long period of years, I gradually built until the stage where I was visibly a bodybuilder, and anyone who'd seen me back in school or my teenage years would have gone, there's not a chance in hell. Not a chance in hell Steve can get on a bodybuilding stage. And that's why...
I don't know. I saw a pretty mean looking lat spread of yours.
Yeah, I was pretty proud of that one. They called me the lat man.
Yeah, well, you know, there's that V tape, but there's a lot of beef.
Yeah.
A lot of beef.
Yes,
and you haven't used anything?
Never.
Wow.
But the thing is, honestly, I never would have won anything because of my calves. Once I broke my foot doing, I was trying to break some boards, and they got a yellow belt to hold, some yellow belts to hold them. When I went to kick through these two boards with a turning kick, they flinched, and instead my foot concertinaed up. Hold on. I'll show you my foot now. Here we go. I don't know if you can see that.
Okay.
See how it's all warped and bent?
Yeah.
It's about 1.5 inches shorter than the other one. So, so that stopped me from ever winning a competition. But my last competition I was entering, I just got married, and I was just about to get married, and I say it myself, but I was looking really good shape. My back had never been as big. The lat man was in the house, and I was really proud of what I'd done. And then I crashed into a truck. I was driving to work, and I slid on some cow poo across the road, and I slid straight into a truck. Ended everything for me. Now I'm training my son, and you're not going to believe what you see by the time I'm done with him, John. His lats,
already what I've seen looks pretty impressive.
Yeah. His lats are going to be insane. Lats seem to be a thing in my family. You know? I mean, you know, you can see my dad there. I don't know if it's you can see it.
How old's your dad there?
Oh, there, he would be um, mid to late 20s. Yeah,
So what he was a gym owner. Did he
later on, yeah.
what did he do before he became a gym owner?
Well, he was a school teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, so school teacher, and that was it. He'd always play soccer and things like that.
Yeah.
And then that chance meeting with Reg Park changed everything, and he grew very fast, applying what the magazines said in the olden days. Now, magazines like this that gave real advice, real quality articles, no bullshit.
So he would have seen Reg Park in England, or
Yeah,
okay.
It was Manchester. He saw him walking out of a Manchester auditorium.
All right.
Either
So
Manchester or Liverpool, one of those two.
your father was a school teacher in England,
Yes, yeah,
and
and
then
then
he
he
was
emigrated to Australia, to Sydney.
and continued to
Um,
be a school teacher.
yep. He was a PE
And
teacher, a maths teacher.
did it ever get to a point where he was just a gym person? He's a gym owner. He made his money from owning a gym and
No,
stopped teaching.
no, he always taught, and the bodybuilding for him was more of a lifestyle thing. Um, he he never competed, and that was one of his biggest regrets. He always said there was no point in me competing because I always wanted to stay natural, and I think in the back of his head he would have liked to, but back then there weren't really any natural competitions in Tasmania, and
But Steve, there's a lot of bodybuilders like myself, Tony Pearson. We didn't go around saying we were natural. We weren't using anything. And
mm,
Tony Pearson, when you look at the condition he was in when he won the 1978 Mr. America, and he was using nothing.
nothing. Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Later
Yep.
on, he probably did use, I think he said, he did bits and pieces, but I
Yep.
don't think he ever reached that condition that he had at the 78 America
He
again.
did. He wasn't as sharp.
He was never that sharp again. That
No.
was without any drugs. My
Yeah.
best ever condition, believe it or not, was at the 1980 Best in Australia.
I remember.
I wasn't using anything, and I never
Mhm.
got that conditioned again.
Yeah, you were razor sharp.
I got close to it, or maybe even more, but it wasn't the same look, because when you're not using anything, the body takes on it's a different look.
It does.
And when you peak and you're not using anything, it all comes out, and it's there, and you're going, well, wow, look what I've done, and I haven't used anything, right? Yep. Leading up to it, you've really got to stay confident, because you may not, people that don't use as you're getting in shape don't show the same as somebody who is using. But in the end, when you're finally done and you step up on stage, I sometimes think it's actually a benefit not to use anything, because if you're able to build your body without using anything, it is a different look.
It is.
And your conditioning, it's real. There's not all this water you got to deal with.
Exactly.
There's not all this cosmetic stuff that you got to deal with. It's like, this is me. I'm real. This is real muscle.
Yep.
And you still go through the pain that you do when you compete. It's not easy, whether you're natural or enhanced. And it's a different look. And the good thing about it was, Steve, knowing that you did it on your own without any help. One of the biggest highs I used to get is not telling anyone that I was natural, but beating the guys that were using stuff. Right. And I'm going, well, but I didn't throw it in their face. It was a personal thing for myself.
Yes.
Self-satisfaction. And then one day, because Roger Walker was competing in the Mr. South Pacific contest, I said, when are you ever going to get a chance again to stand next to a pro of that caliber? It was the 1979 Pro-Am Mr. South Pacific.
Yep.
I hadn't been training. So 6 weeks before that contest, I started training for it. And I think I even left my job. I wasn't in great shape, but right there, I thought, you've got all these plans, but really, when will you ever stand next to a pro bodybuilder? They never compared me to Roger, never got to stand next to him, but that contest and the caliber of it,
Yeah.
The 1979 Pro-Am Mr. South Pacific. I ended up getting third place as a middleweight. Ivan Drelich won the overall. And because Roger was not in peak condition, he was 2 weeks away from the Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
He actually lost the overall title to Ivan. Then 2 weeks later, he's made top 6 in the Mr. Olympia. And that's when I realized, I said, you know what, you're always looking at the American bodybuilding scene. Do you realize what you were just put through here, the caliber of competition, and what you're going to have to do to be the best in Australia?
Yeah.
That was the wake-up call.
That's the turning point. Yeah.
Right. But again, at that contest, I was natural. I wrote it down on my form, and Paul Graham would not read it out. He read out everything on everybody's form, what gym you came from, how big your arms were, what you had for dinner, all sorts of personal details. I put down the one thing that I wanted read out was that I'm not using anything. I'm natural. Yeah. So when he didn't announce it in the pre-judging. Then at the night show, I went to him and I said, Paul, twice now you've announced me and you're not reading what I've put on my form, that I'm actually natural. Why aren't you saying that? And he goes, I'll tell you why. He goes, Channel 9's here. And if I was to say you were natural, the first thing they're going to say to me is, what are the others doing? Right? So right then
it was there, unspoken I thought, back then.
Why continue with this? Nobody even wants to know that you're not using anything. Yeah, Chuck Yorton's making a lot of noise over at the United States, but you're in Sydney, Australia, mate. Nobody cares. Right? So from there, I thought at some stage you'll end up using, just get as big as you can without using anything. So then a year later at the Opera House, I think you may have seen that. That's 1980 Mr. Olympia. So I won the best in Australia. I wasn't using anything.
Wow.
And that day, I think I proved that I was the best amateur bodybuilder in Australia.
Yeah, no doubt.
So we didn't, there was a lot of good people that never used them. We didn't say anything. And I think when you do that, Steve, the other thing is, like, if you look at Kay Green and Ronnie Coleman, you can say whatever you want about them, but I think they were two bodybuilders that went a long way without using anything. So when they finally did start using, a little bit probably went a long way.
100%. And they'd established that base as well.
Yeah.
You know, I always say to young people, you don't build a house on swampland. No. You establish a really strong foundation before you build that.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to do. But nowadays, people are just jumping on the gear. And that's why you see these melting snowmen once they finish. They just shrink to nothing, like Paul Dillette. These people that jumped on the gas right from the get-go, once they stop, they shrink back to nothing.
Yeah,
if you've got that natural base, you can always call back on that. That having that strong natural base built up over many years before you try something is vital. And this is another difference between the physiques we saw in your era and the 80s and so on, and now. And that's a big difference. Teenagers, they'll start training 2 weeks and they'll message me and go, what should I take? I said, I don't know. You're a bloody teenager. Don't do it. Take bull's liver, sleep 8 hours a night, take creatine, follow an immaculate diet, don't smoke, don't do dope, don't do any of that stuff, and come back in 5 years and ask the same question.
Yeah.
I let them have it. And they don't like the answer sometimes, but a lot of them now are listening to me.
Look, what I do in a situation like that, I don't try to be Spartan, whereas it's no drinking, you can't do this. Let them understand the importance of it. But if you've got a couple of vices, you are human. Like it's but that natural base and just, Steve, the satisfaction of knowing, like I've made gains with steroids and without steroids. And I've got to tell you, once you know how to diet and train, I'm not so sure that steroids make that much difference to a person like me as they would to someone else.
Yeah. Some people are hyper responders, aren't they? They take it.
It's not just about hyper responsiveness, but also the fact that you know what to do and you actually don't need them. And I've measured my gains while I've been using something, and I'm going, well, John, this is really great, but why are you using anything at all? You've made the same gains, you've measured the same, you've looked the same, if not better, without using anything. Why are you even doing this? And one of the things, again, I've got to get back to Tony Pearson, because, like, you know, when you talk about longevity, he's got to be one of the very best examples. Look at him at his age.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things he said is when he did use, he made sure that he didn't go overboard with poundages or doing anything ridiculous that he couldn't do later on when he was off.
Yeah.
So there was always this even keel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. That you try and create. I never did that. I think I blew my gaskets before my time, you know, by going overboard. But that's one of the things that should be considered, because, you know, people will end up using all sorts of things. But also, having said that, you know, when I was using those liver tablets, Steve, I was using 100 of them a day with amino acids.
Okay.
Now, don't tell me that's a natural thing. You can say you're natural because you weren't using steroids, but using 100 liver tablets a day.
That's not naturally.
With about, I don't know how much amino acid, because you were doing that in between meals. That was one of the things that Mr. Geronda recommended to keep your nitrogen balance up. And the eggs, right? So really, were we natural? Was that all, you know?
Yeah.
True. You know, 12 chicken breasts a day, like, is really, when you look at it, Steve, come on, 100 liver tablets, all the meat, all the protein.
It's a lot to process, isn't it?
It's a lot to process. But having said that, you back off from doing that, and you've got you know, if you back off the extremes of contest training, and you just go to how a regular bodybuilder would have lived in those days, life extension tool. It's a life extension tool.
Yep. Well, I'm doing a lot more reading about longevity and so on now. Since I beat type 2, when I got type 2 diabetes, when I couldn't move and I was eating through depression and getting stuck into the biscuits for the first time in my life. See, before you mentioned Spartan, for someone like me who has absolutely dismal genetics, in order to become any form of bodybuilder, I literally had to. If I were to get less sleep, if I were to have any form of junk food, I would start to get sniffy, and my performance in the gym would falter. Alcohol just did not agree with me whatsoever. I'd find my gut would bloat and I'd feel like crap for the next couple of workouts. So for me, a Spartan existence did work.
But Steve, how much alcohol are we talking about? Because
not very much. I'm not a drinker. Yeah, I was never a drinker. I'm talking going out on a Saturday night and having a few. But you know, if I had a workout Sunday night or Monday night, I hated how I felt. Yet if all the dominoes were lined up perfectly for me, I grew. And I grew, and people couldn't believe what I was doing, considering at that stage I was natural, and they couldn't believe the changes that I was making compared to what I was.
Did you want to ask me about genetics now? Because on one hand you're telling me your genetics were no good, but on the other hand you're telling me when you dialed it in, and this is what I always say: you've got to find whatever it is. That when you have found it, you go, okay, this is the program I should be on. This is how I should be eating. And you were making those phenomenal gains without using anything.
That's right.
So why tell me you have rotten genetics when you know you unlocked a code and you did it? As far as I'm concerned, genetics never won anything for anyone.
Hard work and tenacity.
I mean... You know, Gaspari was accused of not having good genetics. And then when you look at it, he even said it. I saw a podcast of his earlier. He just finished the back workout and he said why he always keeps a positive state of mind and how he was told that he didn't have genetics and he was this and he was that. But look at the guy.
Yeah.
Look at you know, and
his calves. Look at his calves.
You know, but also even Lee Haney said it. He goes, when you look at Lee Haney, he goes, my mother was 6 foot. My father was 6 foot. there's no surprise that I popped out.
No.
When you look at Richard Gaspari, 5 foot father, 5 foot mother, no signs of any genetics, nothing. Where did it all come from? You know, the one thing I've got to say about Gaspari that I noticed in his younger days, he's got this fierce look behind his eyes.
Yeah.
Like if he's going to tackle something,
hungry.
I can do it as well, but I don't think not too many people are as consistent as Rich Gaspari at keeping that intensity going. I've done it for a short period of time, and probably so have you.
Yes.
But the consistency of Gaspari and that mindset far outweighs any sort of genetic gift. Even Lee Haney said it. He goes, his parents were 5 foot. He goes, when we went in the gym, he goes, nothing was going to stop this guy. He used to froth at the mouth. You know, that's, and with me, sometimes people have asked me, and I said, you know what? You've just got to want this so bad. You've really got to want it so bad. And I can't explain to you how bad you've got to want it and what you've got to do. It's sheer willpower. And Steve, there's a skill involved. There's work ethic. You didn't just come, whatever you did to make all these gains. You know, 1 minute you're telling me your genetics are no good. Like, you're over 6 foot. You're as wide as a barn door.
Was. Will be again.
Okay, and you're telling me that your genetics are no good, but this is why I get the shits with any discussions about genetics.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes you see a person who's eating maybe junk food and he's training like an idiot, but you know what? That guy's got his own little system going that actually works. Whatever it is that he's doing, and as silly as it looks, he's cottoned on, he's fell upon a system that's actually working for him. You go, but hold on, look at him. He has sandwiches for lunch. He's lean. I eat like that. And I go, it's an environmental thing, Steve, because I've been caught in a position where it was very stressful. I was getting blackmailed and I was not in a good situation. And I remember I couldn't eat. Right? Couldn't eat that week. That week I've never lost so much body fat. Obviously I lost a bit of muscle, but that week I happened to do a body fat test and I'm going, mate, you're actually really lean from being blackmailed. It's an environmental thing. It's the environment that you're caught in. You cannot change the environment that you're in. So the one thing I've always done is, okay, well, if I'm living in this environment, you're not going to be able to do 20 sets of body part. But 20 sets of body part was working. Why can't I do it now? No, drop that, train within your environment. So all I can do now is do a system where I have to train more or less like Mike Mensa, 1 set warm up, 1 set to failure. And then you do that system, you develop a system which is to do with your environment, and you make gains because you're doing something. I think where people fail, they put these unrealistic expectations in their head, then they get caught up in a job or something happens and they stop training because it's unsustainable and they're not living within their environment. So if you can adapt to your environment, that to me makes more sense than saying, oh, I got good genetics or I don't have good genetics. You're training within your environment. I don't know if you agree with that, but to me, I
agree with that totally. And you gave me some advice last year. I took 19 weeks off work. I had long service leave as a teacher, and I made it so that I had the summer holidays beforehand, then the whole of term 1, and then the holidays after that. So I ended up with 19 weeks, and I said to my wife, I'm going all out. I didn't tell her I was going to train for a bodybuilding competition. And I started to grow, and it was, oh, God, it was awesome. My muscles started growing again. And I was growing and growing, and I have never trained more than 4 days a week the entire time because I've either been studying to become a teacher or I have been a teacher. And you know, when you're teaching is a very demanding job. You wouldn't think so, but it is. It would be. So, you know, 4 days a week as a natty was enough for me to really grow. And I remember saying to you, I'm going to train for the first time 5 or 6 days a week, like I've never done that before. I want to see how I go. And I remember you saying to me, don't train that much. And I didn't listen to you. And after about week 8, my muscles were growing like crazy. But with the added days training, I started to overtrain, and my muscles stopped. And they eventually started to take on a little bit of a softer look, and I wasn't recovering.
Right.
I wasn't recovering from the workouts. So again, what I should have done is train 3 days a week, really, really hard, and then gone into for recovery, cold showers, massage,
Yes.
heaps of vegetables and healthy food, and then gone into the gym again, full of pep. But in terms of genetics, when I say I got bad genetics, I had a sunken chest. And I remember my dad, even from an early age, would get me to do pullovers all the time. And he said, "This will fix your sunken chest." I had a sunken chest that a pirate would have been proud to find. It was terrible. In terms of my genetics, I guess I refer to the fact that what I used to consider a curse genetically has actually been an advantage. I have ankles like a ballerina's. I have the smallest ankles you've ever seen in your life. I've got tiny, tiny, tiny wrists. But, and I have to have the smallest hole on a watch band in order for it to fit. But when you build the muscle up, a tiny frame like mine makes you look twice as big and creates an optical illusion. And it worked to my advantage, because my waist and hips were so tiny. When I did a lat spread, I can remember doing a lat spread in my second competition. And before that, I just walked out and they were politely clapping and then when I turned around and hit a lat spread, there was one lady up the front. I won't tell you what she's holy, and she said it very loud, and everyone laughed. And I'm like, okay, because I'd hit the lat spread, tiny waist, lats came right out, and so what I originally considered a curse, because it was before I had started weight training really, really hard. Now I consider a blessing. I've managed to bring my sunken chest out through years of pullovers during my teenage years. All the things that my dad taught me, I applied, and it fixed all those problems. But I used to follow a guy called Stuart McRobert, and he used to have a column called Brawn with Stuart McRobert, or the Hard Gainer.
What was it called?
It was the Hard Gainer. That's right.
I remember that. Stuart McRoberts.
Yeah.
It was also Bradley J. Stainer.
Yes.
Yep.
And his advice was really sound. It's terrific advice. But I took on that word hard gainer for a long time and thought, oh, I'm a hard gainer. Everyone else is growing faster than me. I must be a hard gainer. And now, knowing what I know about the power of words and the power that they can have over you and the effect, and I follow something called The Secret, which I'll tell you about later on.
Yes, you're going to look at The Secret.
Yeah. Repeating the word hard gainer all the time actually is a self-fulfilling prophecy and actually stops you from getting big. So it was actually my son that stopped me from doing that. My son follows The Secret to the letter, and progress like that since he has. He said, I'm not calling myself a hard gainer. And if you switch your way of thinking to I'm progressing, I'm growing, I'm full of vitality, I have defeated type 2 diabetes, I'm going to grow like crazy. My lats are going to. You look at Arnold Schwarzenegger. He used to do it. He said, "My biceps are like mountains." Frank Zane. All the people I admire, they all have that positive mindset. They don't put ceilings on their achievements.
No.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to achieve this. And once I went to that place as a young man, it just took off. But back in the day when I first started training, I can remember my best friend, who was best man at my wedding, and myself. We were both incredibly skinny. He was even skinnier than I was, if that's at all possible. And we walked down the beach, and I think you might know this story. And there was a beautiful group of women over in the corner, and they dropped to their knees, not in worship, but in laughter, tears. And Jace looked at me and he said to me, "That's it. That is bloody it. I've had enough." And then, funny enough, that night, a school bully who was a thug and beat everyone up around Devonport was driving past us, and he stopped his car, got out, and beat the 9 living hells out of me for no reason whatsoever. He just used to do it. And I thought to myself,
"Oh my God,
yeah, that's it." Both those things happened that day. And Jace goes, he went to my dad, and he he was upset. He was upset. He said, have had a gutful of it. I can't stand what I see in the mirror. I can't stand being weak. I can't stand being small. So my dad took him in the lounge room and wrote all this stuff down for him. And he walked out with his pad. And after a while, during the winter, I noticed he started wearing lots of jumpers, and we all gave him an absolute baking over it. We laughed and carried on going, you're not fooling anybody. Anyway, he just kept on all these layers of jumpers, or what were assumed were layers of jumpers. Summer came. He hadn't been wearing lots of jumpers at all. He'd bloody grown. And he'd grown like crazy and applied exactly what my dad had said. You know, sons don't always listen to their dads. And I wanted to follow magazines like this, which, you know, still had great advice. But by this stage, you were talking about really huge guys who were on heavy steroid cycles and stuff. And the advice doesn't always apply to a natural skinny man like myself, who should employ a more reduced recovery-based exercise format. So my friend, my best friend, had done that, and he took off his jumper, and mouths just dropped, and the smug look on his face, because we've been bagging him out all winter about wearing jumpers, but he hadn't been wearing jumpers. He just had a couple, and he put on all this size, and then he just grew and grew. And if you looked at him, you'd say, never in a million years, never would you look like a bodybuilder. And he was insane, way better than I was. Like, he's back. And I'm trying to get him back on the weights now, because he's hit a hard run, and he likes a drink or four. And I'm trying to get him back into the weights. And I'm starting to see a bit of a hungry look in his eye. I'm actually going to go to his door with my camera, and for my TikTok, I'm going to lay a challenge on him right on his doorstep. And whenever he's around me, he just wants to start training again.
You know what?
Life gets in the way.
Think you're probably your own worst enemy. I think. I was thinking about this. If I was coaching this guy, I'd stop him from letting all these things get in the way, and he'd probably become huge. And he knows how to do it.
Yeah.
But I keep using this analogy. It's like a builder who's built all these beautiful mansions, right? Then you'll have a look at his house, and it's horrible. You know, he does it for everybody else, but he can't do it for himself. Not because he doesn't know how to. He just doesn't. And as you were talking, I thought, listen to him. He's telling you how he's come up with the diet, with the training program that basically had him growing like he was taking a cycle, and he wasn't. That's Steve discovered what actually works for him. The problem is, his problem is he has a problem applying it. And he's not answerable to anybody. That's why I thought if I was dealing with him and I was actually his coach, this guy would probably turn into something he's never been before, for sure. So that's why when you claim that I get annoyed over genetics, I do. It's annoying that people keep bringing it up. And what are genetics? Well, genetics are something where, okay, you put together a particular way, and sometimes you don't even know that you've got those genetics. Or even with me, when you saw my body before I started anything, I'm going, there was no signs of the small waist. I had these drooping shoulders. I had hips that were out here. I had a belly that was in here. And I'm going, like, how? I'm looking at myself in the mirror and go, whatever the answer is, I don't know, but I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to take no for an answer. This is not going to get in my way. I'm going to change this. And honestly, Steve, if you looked at my structure, there was, it's like, and then you look at that photo of me standing relaxed where, I've got that V taper that you like.
Yes.
I just, looking at what I had and then looking at that, I'm going, how did you do that?
Yeah.
And the fact is, you discover, you don't give up. There was 2 years where I made absolutely no gains. And that's when I started reading Bradley J. Stainer, and I'm going, you're a hard gainer. You're a hard gainer. And then I thought, you might want to stop using that term. Just avoid all this and just go for it. Stop being so technical. Stop reading about who can gain and what you can't gain and what you can't do. This is all other people's opinion.
Yeah.
Just go to where you've got to go to. And where I had to go to was a huge leap to take over. We had really good guys here, Steve, right? So to become the best in Australia, when you think about it, you know, we've always admired the English, we've always admired the Americans, but look who we've had. Lee Priest, Sonny Schmidt, Gary Lua, myself, Peter Lindsay,
all those guys.
Frank Colombera. We've had some of the world's, you know, because where we're located, and, you know, there was no real, like Joe Weider had Muscle and Fitness or Muscle Builder, and it was worldwide. Whatever we had here was either Paul's magazine or Rocco's magazine, and they never made it out of Sydney or Melbourne. Maybe went to the rest of Australia. So, you know, and George Johns brings it up all the time because he's from England. He said, like, why does Australia have so many good bodybuilders? And I thought, what's he talking about? And then when I sat back and thought about it, I said, well, go back to 1975 when you were in love with Mr. America. I think back then it was Dale Adrian, right? And look at the guys you had here that nobody even knew about.
And
nobody knew that they existed.
They could have they could have held their own, to be honest.
They could have held their own. So, you know, to me back then, it was a very hard time because I thought, Australia doesn't have it. And to me, it was like, you've got to get out of this country. You've got to become the best and you've got to make this leap, you know. And if I'd have kept thinking and using the wrong terminology, speaking to myself, it never would have happened, Steve. You know, so your son is 100% correct. He's obviously into the secret.
Yes, he is.
Much more so you and I maybe doubt. He's relaxed enough and he's put himself in a place that you or I know it exists, but we probably just don't do it as well as him. And this is where your coaching comes in.
Yeah.
You need to have a mentor or a coach that's going to keep you in line.
And that's what I do with him. But being his dad, young men, you know,
they don't listen to their dad.
Or if you're not listening to dad, I've got to find a different coach for him down the track.
We're not wired that way.
No, that's right. And I want him to find other guys who he can aspire to and look up to. And you know, I've been at that for the initial years, but it's time for him to move on. But what I've offered him in the meantime has worked really well, and I was really lucky. My parents were also very supportive when I was a fledgling bodybuilder. Before my competition, my mum came along with $100 worth of salmon steaks and just filled my freezer with them. She popped round with steak, and she also bought me a full body wax. That wasn't fun, by the way. Never do one of them in one go. Oh, bloody hell. But she bought me a full body wax and a tan. And my dad had popped round, and he was really supportive. They were in the front row. So I was really lucky in that regard. So we do the same for my son. We make sure he's got the optimum food. He pays board and everything, of course, but we provide him with the very best food. If he's got a really early morning shift and I'm awake, I'll help him out and then pack him some meals for the day. Not done it. So all his dominoes are in line. So now it's just up to him to really take it on.
So Steve, tell me about this domino then. I didn't know your mother was so supportive, because when I guest posed in Tasmania, I don't know if you can see this poster here. This poster here is that Tasmanian Championship.
That I didn't get to see.
That you didn't get to see. That's that poster there.
Yes.
Right?
Yep, that's the one.
Because from what I could remember, you and your father were belly aching so much, she said, that if I hear this name John Torelli one more time, I don't know what she threatened you with, but
she said,
now you're telling me that she's really that supportive. So
oh yeah, she was supportive. It was only you.
It was so.
I better tell.
You're going to have to tell this story before we finish off, mate.
Okay. Well, I remember when John won, when you won the Best in Australia back in 1980. My dad came in with a magazine, as he always would, and goes, "Son, check this out. This is bodybuilding." And he showed me your picture, and he said, "This is an Australian guy." And he's basically Frank Zane. I think you eventually got bigger than Frank Zane with the same Zane-esque features.
Yeah.
But he said, this is the new Frank Zane, and he's Australian. This is the next big thing in Australia. And he said, he used to use a term called the look. And he said, that's the look. Anyway, he showed me a picture. And we're like, wow, geez, that's incredible. Anyway, years later, we followed you in the Olympia and different magazines, and we loved your pictures in Iron Man, and we had them up on our wall in our gym and so on. And then one day I opened up the magazine, and then there was all these pictures of you, John Torelli, coming to the Mr. Tasmania. I ran upstairs, Dad, we've got to go to this. And he goes, oh, my God, John Torelli, okay, we're going. So we're really excited. And for the next few weeks, every now and then, Dad would just go, John Torelli, 4 days away, and Mum would go, oh, for God's sake, and because that's all she'd heard. Anyway, the day came, and we both developed gastro, throwing up over and over. We were sick as dogs, and we couldn't go. And anyway, for the next 2 weeks, we were moping around the house. And then that's why my mum said, oh, we miss John Torelli. So my mum said, if I hear that bloody John Torelli's name one more time, I'll skin you. She had a gutful. She said, shut up.
Well,
Get over it. But when it came to my bodybuilding, yeah, she could rattle off all the bodybuilders. You, Rich Gaspari. Rich Gaspari was her favourite. Yeah, she was into it as well. She wasn't a bodybuilder.
Is she still with us?
No, both my parents had passed. She never did the bodybuilding, but
your father was around till a few years ago, wasn't he?
Yes.
I didn't realise that, because when he was still around, I thought he had already gone.
No,
he was just very ill.
Yeah, he had Alzheimer's. So the sad part is, his Alzheimer's hit him really fast. The doctors said, we've never seen anything like this. I was just driving along with him one day, and he said, who's following you? And I go, no one's following me. I said, tell me the truth. I can help you. If someone's following. And he started talking nonsense. And he got arrested and put in jail because he was walking down the main street, stopping cars, and he just went like that. Prior to that, John, he had striated quads.
Yep.
On no word of a lie, he still had his 8-pack like that. Mm-hmm. And, he wasn't a big man at that stage, but he was just starting to eat. He would cook bull's liver. He would go and buy bull's liver every second day with a mountain of vegetables, and he would eat bull's liver by the bucket load. And he had a fire in his eye because he'd just seen a natural competition in Tasmania that had an over 70s division and an over 80s division. He said, I never knew this sort of thing was around. I said, do it. And when he passed, and I was cleaning out his house, which is a horrible thing for any son to do, I actually came across, and I never knew he'd done this, books for decades, and a book for each year, every single workout he'd done, he meticulously written down how he felt, what he'd eaten the day before, what kind of things made him feel good, a famous Zane quote which would motivate him for that workout. So he was a thinking man's bodybuilder, which is what I not blow my own trumpet, but that's what I did when I was young, and I didn't even realise he'd done it. He'd told me a training journal, but I had no idea he had them all. So it was.
I've actually got all of mine. There
you go.
In actual fact, I've often thought about. There's a photo of me in 1976 at the Mr. New South Wales, the day after Robert took a photo of me doing a most muscular. Then there's a most muscular on the Mr. Olympia stage, and they're exactly 10 years apart. And I have every single workout and training program that I did to go from a nobody in Australia to a Mr. Olympia competitor.
Jeez.
How the gains were made, the workout that I used, the food. I'm just wondering if I did that and put it in a book form where for those 10 years, everything's listed on how I got from here to here.
Yep.
I'm not sure how that would go, but you're writing some books. So before we wrap up, I want to know, what are these books? You've been telling me for the longest time that you're going to have finished. I've been waiting. I've offered help. I'll do whatever you need. When are you going to finish the bloody thing?
Oh, my God. This summer. I've actually just cut my teaching down to 2 days a week, and I'm doing relief teaching on the other days, which is going to free me up so much to do what I need to do next. So my first book is everything that my dad learned and everything that I've learned. So about 70, 60 years worth of bodybuilding knowledge, 60 plus. We're putting everything that we have learned, everything from the old school magazines, everything that we've
Yes.
applied is going into this book. It's my opus. It's my Bible. And the reason I'm writing it is to pass everything that I know onto my son so that he can sift through all the bullshit that floats around and I absolute honest advice for him to become the greatest natural bodybuilder he can be. And it was originally supposed to come out in 2020, but then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know what happened to teachers during COVID, but that online teaching, that was killer.
I just destroyed.
And
My first cousin is a teacher. It destroyed her.
oh God, yeah. So that's my first book. It's basically my Bible of bodybuilding. That's the first one coming out. The second one you've done an interview for, and Steve Davis, Doug Brignall before he passed, great bodybuilders. It's an interview book of who I consider to be the most aesthetic, amazing bodybuilders that have trodden this earth. I've interviewed as many of them as I can and just asked them 10 questions, and they've answered it, and I'm going to release that with their photos. And what an amazing thing for young people to read.
Oh, yeah.
Real aesthetic, not your massive bulbous insulin growth hormone abusers, but your V-shaped, X-framed, wide-shouldered, glowing skin, virility, vitality, a youthful vigor. That's the second book, an interview with those guys. And the third one is the Skinny Man's Bible. So it's that's one that's coming up. It's going to be a book where someone who's incredibly skinny, I'm going to give them advice about keeping an abbreviated workout routine, so 3 a week, keeping the movements heavy for them, not heavy overall, but heavy for them. I know that's a topic you wanted to touch on as well, the concept of heavy, but we might have to do that next time.
We definitely have. We're not going to finish everything today. We're going to have to do this again.
We will do it again
because we've been going now for an hour and 10 minutes, and we've hardly scratched the surface.
Yeah.
So
I feel we might need to collaborate on something.
We do, and whatever help you need finishing the books, like I'm there for you. I just want them finished. I got something. No, because look, I've got my own projects, but they're totally different from yours.
Yeah.
But they'd be down the same line. So if I can help you be successful with what you're doing, it's going to line the road for me, because similar stuff but different. It's different.
Yeah. Yes.
So I want to see yours come out.
Yeah, I will. Don't you worry. It will. Absolutely. This summer it's coming out.
People need to see it. They need to hear it. They need to participate in it.
That's right.
That could be one of the very vital steps that we can take to change some of the things that we've been seeing.
Well, I'll leave it with that, Ben, that, as a bodybuilder, I'm not fit to carry your gym bag, but personally,
I wouldn't say that, because you don't know what sort of shape I'm in. I know what you're capable of. Plus, Steve, it's what's in here, mate.
I love
genetics. It's not, when you get in there, and your son will probably tell you about this. I just know I know he's got it wrapped up, because everything you've ever said, he's just going to be a smarter version of you.
He's already.
Okay, well,
he's just like a sponge.
Yeah.
Wait till you meet him. He's an impressive character. He really is.
I can't wait to meet him, and I want to do that posing at the edge of a rock.
Absolutely.
I want to do all of that. I love what you're doing, and if I can support you and help you in any way, I will. And I really hope even the short interview we did today gets out there and people take notice of it and know what we're here for.
I certainly hope so. Let's get these young fellas on the right track.
Yes.
and girls. I'll leave you with this really quickly. I recently met a girl. She was 18. The most incredible shape we've ever seen. Like lats, unbelievable. So yeah, girls, get in the gym as well. It's absolutely vital, even more important for women to weight train. Yep. It's a secret to longevity. It's a secret to health. You won't have to pop Viagra's when you're 80 years old. You'll keep your natural testosterone levels high. Bodybuilding is a gift that keeps on giving. So thanks, John, for the interview.
Steve, thank you so much. And
Yeah.
we'll have to do another one real soon.
We will. Let's organise
All
it.
right.
Do it, and we'll film soon.